The alarm bell screamed through the research station as explosions shook the metal walls. Dr. Kim Jae-woo looked up from his computer screen, where complex equations filled every inch of space. He had been working on quantum field theory for the past 18 hours straight. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. Through the thick glass window of his laboratory, he could see the emergency lights flashing red. Other scientists were running through the corridors with panic written across their faces. Some carried important research files while others just ran with empty hands. The attack had come without warning. Jae-woo stood up slowly and walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the massive alien ship hovering above the research station. It was dark gray with sharp edges that looked like a weapon itself. Smaller ships flew around it like angry insects. Bright green beams shot from these smaller ships and hit the station's defense shields. The shields were failing. Jae-woo could see the energy barrier flickering like a dying light bulb. Soon the aliens would break through and board the station. He knew this moment would come. He had planned for it. Other people might think Jae-woo was just another scientist. They would be wrong. Very wrong. Behind his quiet manner and thick glasses was one of the sharpest minds humanity had ever produced. He could solve problems that made other brilliant people give up. He could see patterns where others saw only chaos. More importantly, he could think many steps ahead like a chess master. While others focused on the current move, he was already planning moves 10 or 20 steps into the future. This ability had made him valuable to Earth's government. They often asked him to solve problems that seemed impossible. The station shook, again as another explosion hit somewhere close by. Jae-woo walked back to his desk and sat down. He opened a hidden drawer and pulled out a small device that looked like a simple pen. Inside this device was every piece of important research from the station. It also contained detailed information about Earth's real defenses, but the information was encrypted in a way that would take even the most advanced computers thousands of years to break. Only Jae-woo knew the key. The aliens would find the device eventually. They would think they had struck gold. They would waste enormous amounts of time and resources trying to crack the encryption. While they were distracted by the fake treasure, Jae-woo would be gathering real intelligence about their capabilities. He would learn their weaknesses. He would find ways to use their own strengths against them. The laboratory door burst open with a loud bang. 3 alien soldiers rushed inside. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. They wore dark armor that seemed to absorb light. These were Kethran warriors. Earth's intelligence services had files on their species. The Kethran Empire had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy. They were known for their military strength and their brutal efficiency. They showed no mercy to species they considered weak. The lead soldier pointed a weapon at Jae-woo. The weapon hummed with energy and glowed, with the same green light as the ship's beams. Jae-woo raised his hand slowly to show he was not armed. He made sure to look scared and helpless. Human scientist. The soldier spoke through a translation device attached to his armor. The voice sounded metallic and cold. You will come with us. Do not resist or you will be terminated. Jae-woo nodded quickly like a frightened man who wanted to live. Please don't hurt me, he said in a shaking voice. I'm just a researcher. I don't know anything about military matters. This was the first lie, but it would not be the last. The soldiers grabbed him roughly and pushed him toward the door. As they walked through the corridors, Jae-woo memorized everything he saw. He counted the soldiers. He noted their equipment. He observed how they moved and communicated. The station's corridors were filled with smoke and debris. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Other human prisoners were being herded along like cattle. Jae-woo recognized some of them as fellow scientists. Others were security personnel who had tried to fight the invaders. One of the guards shoved an older scientist who stumbled and fell. Jae-woo helped the man to his feet. Thank you, the scientist whispered. His name was Dr. Park Min-ho. He worked in the engineering section. Stay close to me, Jae-woo whispered back. We'll get through this. Dr. Park looked at him with surprise. Most people would be terrified in this situation. But there was something calm and confident in Jae-woo's voice that made the older man feel slightly better. They reached the station's main docking bay where several alien transport ships waited. The ships were smaller than the main vessel, but still impressive in size. Their hulls were covered in what looked like weapons and sensors. The prisoners were divided into groups. Jae-woo found himself separated from Dr. Park and the others. A Kethran officer with more decorations on his armor approached Jae-woo's group. This one was different from the soldiers. His movements were more controlled and his eyes showed intelligence. I am Sub-Commander Nixal, the officer announced. You are now prisoners of the Kethran Empire. You will be taken to our ship for questioning. Those who cooperate will be treated well. Those who resist will face consequences. Jae-woo studied the officer carefully. Nixal carried himself with pride and arrogance. His voice suggested he believed the Kethran were superior to all other species. This attitude would be useful later. Arrogant enemies often made mistakes because they underestimated their opponents. The transport ship's interior was cramped and uncomfortable. The prisoners sat on hard metal benches while Kethran guards watched them. The ship's engines made a low rumbling sound as they left the research station behind. Through a small window, Jae-woo could see the station growing smaller in the distance. Soon it was just a tiny dot against the background of stars. For the other prisoners, this might have been their last view of home. For Jae-woo, it was just the beginning of a much larger game. The journey to the main Kethran vessel took about an hour. During this time, Jae-woo continued his observations. He listened to the guards talking in their own language. He studied the ship's interior design. He counted the number of guards and noted their positions. Most importantly, he began to understand the Kethran mindset. They were a military culture that valued strength above all else. They respected power and despised weakness. They believed that might made right and that superior technology guaranteed victory. This would be their downfall. Because while the Kethran had superior technology, they lacked something more important. They lacked the human ability to think creatively and adapt quickly to new situations. When the transport ship docked with the main vessel, Jae-woo felt a slight smile cross his lips. The other prisoners might see this as the beginning of a nightmare. But for Earth's sharpest mind, it was exactly where he needed to be. The real game was about to begin. The detention cell was exactly what Jae-woo had expected. Gray metal walls surrounded a small space with a narrow bed and basic facilities. A single light panel provided dim illumination. The door was solid with a small window that allowed guards to look inside. Jae-woo sat on the bed and began his performance. He slumped his shoulders and let his head hang down like a broken man. When footsteps approached in the corridor, he made sure to look up with fearful eyes. 2 days passed before Sub-Commander Nixal came for the first interrogation. The Kethran officer entered the cell with confidence written across his alien features. Behind him stood 2 guards with energy weapons ready. "Human," Nixal said through his translator device. "I am here to ask you questions about your planet's defenses. Answer truthfully and you will not be harmed." Jae-woo made his voice shake with fear. "Please don't hurt me. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm just a scientist. I don't know much about military things." Nixal's eyes showed satisfaction. The human was already broken and ready to cooperate. This would be easier than he had thought. "Tell me about Earth's space defense systems," the officer demanded. Jae-woo pretended to think hard while crafting his response. "We have orbital platforms around Earth, maybe 20 or 30 of them. They have missile systems and energy weapons. But I don't think they're very powerful compared to your ships." This was carefully planned misinformation. Earth actually had over 200 defense platforms hidden in the asteroid belt and around various moons. But Jae-woo wanted the Kethran to believe Earth was weakly defended. "What about your military fleet?" Nixal continued. "We have some warships," Jae-woo replied nervously. "I think maybe a few hundred. They patrol the outer system looking for threats, but they're much smaller than your vessels." Another lie wrapped in truth. Earth's fleet was indeed smaller than the Kethran armada, but it was far more advanced than Jae-woo was admitting. Human ships used experimental technologies that the aliens had never encountered. Nixal asked many more questions over the next Our. Jae-woo answered each one with apparent honesty while feeding the officer exactly what he wanted to hear. The Kethron left the cell believing that Earth would fall easily to their invasion force. But while Nixel had been focused on getting answers, Jae-woo had been gathering intelligence. He had memorized the security codes the guards entered on, their wrist devices. He had counted the number of crew members who passed by his cell. He had listened to conversations in the corridors and begun to understand basic Kethron words. Most importantly, he had identified the ship's daily routines. Guard shifts changed every 8 hours. Mealtimes followed a strict schedule. Engineering teams performed maintenance tasks at predictable intervals. On the third day, Jae-woo made his first move. During the guard change, he called out weakly from his cell. "Please help me. I think I'm getting sick." The new guard looked through the window and saw Jae-woo lying on his bed looking pale and sweaty. The Kethron pressed a button on the cell door and spoke into his communicator. "Prisoner in. Cell 7 appears to be ill. Should I summon medical personnel?" A voice crackled back through the device. "Negative. Humans are weak. Let it suffer. If it dies, we have other prisoners to question." But Jae-woo had heard something else in that exchange. The communication system used a specific frequency pattern that he recognized from his physics research. With the right modifications, it could be used to access other systems on the ship. Later that day, during another interrogation, Jae-woo appeared to have a panic attack. He started breathing heavily and clutching his chest while begging not to be hurt. The performance was so convincing that even the guards looked concerned. Sub-Commander Nixal ordered the guards to bring medical equipment to check the prisoner's condition, while the Kethron medic scanned Jae-woo with various devices he managed to fall against a wall panel during his fake seizure. In that brief moment of contact, he pushed a tiny piece of metal he had filed from the bed frame into a crack in the panel. The metal would create small electrical problems that would seem random and harmless, but Jae-woo knew exactly what those problems would accomplish. Over the following days, the interrogations continued. Nixal grew more confident as Jae-woo provided detailed information about Earth's supposed weaknesses. The human scientist painted a picture of a planet with outdated technology and divided leadership. "Our governments can't agree on anything," Jae-woo explained during one session. "They spend more time arguing with each other than preparing for threats. Some nations don't even believe aliens exist." This information delighted Nixal. A divided enemy was a weak enemy. He began planning how the Kethron could exploit these divisions when they attacked Earth. But every piece of information came with a hidden purpose. When Jae-woo described Earth's primitive computer systems, he was actually learning about Kethron technology by observing their reactions. When he talked about human psychology, he was studying alien behavior patterns. The most valuable intelligence came from overhearing conversations between crew members. Jae-woo learned that this ship called the Void Hunter was part of a much larger fleet. Thousands of Kethron vessels were gathering at a secret location preparing for the invasion of Earth. He also discovered the command structure of the ship. Commander Veltar was the vessel's captain. Engineering Chief Mordak controlled the technical systems. Medical Officer Yulka handled health matters for the crew. Each of these individuals had different personalities and motivations. Veltar was ambitious and wanted glory from conquering Earth. Mordak was proud of Kethron technology and looked down on other species. Yulka seemed more practical and less interested in warfare. These psychological profiles would be crucial for the later phases of Jae-woo's plan. On the 7th day of his captivity, Jae-woo noticed the first signs that his planted metal fragment was working. Lights flickered occasionally in the corridors. Computer screens sometimes showed brief error messages. The problems were small enough to be ignored, but frequent enough to establish a pattern. During his interrogation that day, Nixal seemed especially pleased with himself. "Your information has been very helpful, human. My superiors are impressed. With the intelligence we have gathered, soon your weak planet will join the Kethron Empire." Jae-woo made his voice sound defeated and hopeless. "Will you spare the people who surrender peacefully? Many humans would rather live under Kethron rule than die fighting." "That depends on how useful your species proves to be," Nixal replied coldly. "Useful slaves live, Useless ones do not. The conversation gave Jae-woo important information about Kethron intentions. They planned to enslave humanity rather than simply destroy Earth. This meant they would want to keep the planet's infrastructure intact. It also meant they would underestimate human resistance, because they viewed humans as potential slaves rather than dangerous enemies. That night, as Jae-woo lay in his cell, he reviewed everything he had learned. The Kethron were powerful but predictable. They relied heavily on their technology and their belief in their own superiority. They had standard procedures for everything and rarely adapted their plans. Most importantly, they had completely failed to realize what kind of prisoner they had captured. To them, he was just another frightened human scientist who had broken under pressure and betrayed his own species. They had no idea they were dealing with someone who had been planning this encounter for months. Someone who had allowed himself to be captured as the first move in a game they didn't even know they were playing. The second phase of his plan was about to begin. Soon, the Kethron would learn that capturing Earth's sharpest mind was the biggest mistake they had ever made. 2 weeks had passed since Jae-woo's capture, and his performance as a broken prisoner had become perfect. He shuffled when he walked, and kept his eyes downcast like a man who had given up all hope. The Kethron crew barely noticed him anymore, when guards escorted him through the corridors. This invisibility was exactly what he needed. During his daily walk to the interrogation room, Jae-woo memorized every detail of the ship's layout. He counted doorways and noted which areas required special access codes. He observed the reflection patterns on polished surfaces that showed him glimpses of computer screens and control panels. Most importantly, he studied the people. Every Kethron crew member had distinct behavior patterns and schedules. Chief Engineer Mordak always inspected the main engine room at exactly the same time each day. Medical Officer Yulka preferred to work late shifts when fewer people disturbed her research. Commander Veltar spent most of his time on the bridge but visited the officers' mess hall every evening. Sub-Commander Nixal had grown comfortable with their routine. He arrived for interrogations with the confidence of someone who believed he had completely broken his prisoner's will. This confidence would be his weakness. "Tell me more about the asteroid mining stations," Nixal demanded during their morning session. "How many workers do they employ? What kind of defenses do they have?" Jae-woo made his voice sound tired and defeated. "The main stations have about 5,000 people each. They're not really defended because everyone thought they were too far from Earth to matter. Maybe some old missile systems, but nothing that could stop a real attack." This was another carefully crafted lie. The asteroid belt contained Earth's most advanced military installations disguised as simple mining operations. But Jae-woo wanted the Kethron to waste time and resources attacking targets that seemed valuable, but were actually traps. "Excellent," Nixal said with satisfaction. "These stations will provide useful resources for our fleet. Continue with your cooperation, human, and you may survive to see your planet's integration into our empire." After the interrogation, guards escorted Jae-woo back to his cell, through a route that passed the engineering section. As they walked by an open doorway, he glimpsed something that made his heart race with excitement. On a large display screen, he could see a star map showing the positions of Kethron ships throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked fleet locations while blue lines showed planned attack routes. The scale was enormous. Thousands of vessels were converging on staging areas near Earth's solar system. But more importantly, Jae-woo could see the communication network that connected all these ships. Lines of data flowed between vessels in complex patterns that looked like a massive web. Every ship in the fleet was linked to every other ship through quantum communication channels. This gave him an idea that was either brilliant or insane. Probably both. That evening, during the ship's quiet period, Jae-woo put the next phase of his plan into action. The metal fragment he had planted weeks earlier had created enough small electrical problems that maintenance teams were starting to investigate. When technician Zekin came to check the power systems near Jae-woo's cell, the prisoner was ready. He had torn a piece of fabric from his prison uniform and soaked it with water from his drinking supply. When Zekin opened an access panel to examine the wiring, Jae-woo called out weakly, "Please help me. I spilled water and I'm afraid it might cause problems with the electricity." The young technician looked through the cell window and saw what appeared to be a genuine accident. Zekin was newer to the crew and less experienced than the other Kethron. He decided to check the cell's electrical systems to make sure there were no safety issues. When Zekin entered the cell with his diagnostic equipment, Jae-woo apologized repeatedly for causing trouble. "I'm so sorry. I know you have important work to do. This ship is amazing. I've never seen technology like this." The praise made Zekin feel proud. Most prisoners were sullen and hostile, but this human seemed to appreciate Kethron's superiority. "Our engineering is the best in the galaxy," the technician boasted. "This ship has systems your people couldn't understand in 1,000 years." "Believe it," Jae-woo said with convincing awe. "The power distribution alone must be incredibly complex. How do you coordinate everything?" Zekin's pride overcame his caution. "We use quantum field generators linked to the main processing core. Every system on the ship connects through crystalline pathways that can't be disrupted by normal interference." This was exactly the kind of technical information Jae-woo needed. While pretending to be impressed by Kethron technology, he was actually analyzing its weaknesses. Quantum systems were powerful, but they had specific vulnerabilities that could be exploited by someone who understood the underlying physics. Over the following days, Jae-woo continued to gather intelligence through careful manipulation of his captors. He praised their achievements while asking innocent questions that revealed crucial details about ship operations. From Engineering Chief Mordak, he learned about the vessel's power systems and computer networks. The chief was so proud of Kethron technology that he enjoyed explaining its superiority to the primitive human. From Medical Officer Yulka, he discovered information about Kethron biology and psychology. She found his questions about alien physiology to be intellectually interesting and answered them more thoroughly than she should have. Even Commander Veltar provided useful intelligence during his occasional visits to observe interrogations. The captain's comments about fleet movements and strategic planning gave Jae-woo a clearer picture of the invasion timeline. But the most important breakthrough came when Jae-woo overheard a conversation between Nixal and another officer in the E corridor outside his cell. They were discussing the fleet's gathering point and the final preparations for attacking Earth. "The main force will rendezvous at the Kepler 442 system in 18 days, Nixal was saying. "Once all vessels are assembled, we'll have over 12,000 warships ready for the assault." "What about Earth's defenses?" the other officer asked. "Intelligence reports suggest they may be stronger than initially believed." Nixal laughed with contempt. "I have spent weeks interrogating one of their top scientists. Their defenses are pathetic. A few orbital platforms and some outdated warships. We could conquer them with half our current force." The conversation continued, but Jae-woo had heard enough. 12,000 ships represented the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Even Earth's hidden defenses couldn't stop an armada of that size through conventional warfare. But Jae-woo wasn't planning to fight them conventionally. That night he lay on his narrow bed and began the most complex mental calculation of his life. He visualized the Kethron communication network as a three-dimensional map in his mind. Every ship connected to every other ship through quantum channels that operated on specific frequency ranges. The beauty of the system was also its weakness. Because all ships were connected, any change in one vessel would ripple through the entire network. A skilled physicist who understood quantum mechanics could potentially use this connectivity against them. Jae-woo began to design a signal that would propagate through the network like a virus through a computer system. But instead of destroying data, it would target the Kethran themselves by exploiting their biological responses to certain frequencies. The plan was incredibly dangerous and required perfect timing. If he made even small mistakes, the entire scheme would fail and Earth would face the full fury of the Kethran Empire. But if he succeeded, he could turn their greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. 3 days later, Jae-woo made his next move. During his interrogation with Nixal, he appeared to have an emotional breakdown. He started crying and begging for mercy while providing what seemed to be crucial information about Earth's defenses. "Please don't hurt my family," he sobbed convincingly. "I'll tell you everything I know. There's a secret base hidden inside the moon. That's where Earth keeps its most powerful weapons." Nixal leaned forward with interest. This was the kind of intelligence breakthrough he had been hoping for. "Tell me about these weapons, human," They're called planet crackers, Jay-Woo whispered as if sharing the most dangerous secret in the galaxy. They can destroy entire worlds, but they take a long time to charge up. If you attack Earth before they're ready, you'll have nothing to worry about. This information was completely false, but it served multiple purposes. It would make the Kethran focus their attention on the moon instead of Earth's real defensive positions. It would also make them rush their attack timeline to prevent the fictional weapons from becoming operational. Most importantly, it established Jay-Woo as a source of critical intelligence that needed to be protected and preserved. The Kethran would be reluctant to harm someone who might have more valuable secrets to reveal. As guards escorted him back to his cell, Jay-Woo allowed himself a small smile. The pieces of his plan were falling into place perfectly. Soon the Kethran would discover that capturing Earth's sharpest mind was the beginning of their end. The real game was about to begin. The ship's alarm system wailed through the corridors as emergency lights bathed everything in red. Jay-Woo sat calmly in his cell while chaos erupted around him. He had been counting down to this moment for 3 weeks. The power fluctuation he had planned through his planted metal fragment had finally cascaded into a major electrical problem. Engineering teams rushed past his cell window carrying diagnostic equipment and shouting orders to each other. Chief Engineer Mordak's voice boomed over the ship's communication system. All non-essential personnel report to emergency stations. We have a primary power distribution failure in sectors 7 through 12. This was exactly what Jay-Woo had been waiting for. During the confusion, guards were pulled away from prisoner duty to help with emergency procedures. Only one Kethran remained to watch the detention area, and he was far too distracted by the crisis to pay close attention to his charges. Jay-Woo had prepared for this opportunity over many days. From his torn prison uniform, he had created a small data storage device using fibers woven together in specific patterns. The device looked like nothing more than a piece of fabric, but it contained crucial information encoded in a way that only Earth scientists would recognize. When Technician Zekin hurried past his cell carrying emergency repair equipment, Jay-Woo called out to him. I think I know what might be causing your power problems. I saw something strange yesterday, but I was afraid to mention it. Zekin stopped and looked through the cell window. The emergency had everyone on edge, and any information that might help solve the crisis was valuable. What did you see, human? There was a spark from that panel over there. Jay-Woo pointed to the exact location where he had planted the metal fragment weeks earlier. I thought it was normal, but maybe it's connected to your current problems. The technician examined the panel and quickly found the source of the trouble. While he worked to remove the metal fragment and repair the damage, Jay-Woo slipped the fabric data device through the food slot in his cell door. You dropped this, he said helpfully as Zekin finished his repairs. The technician glanced at what appeared to be an ordinary piece of torn cloth and stuffed it into his toolkit without really thinking about it. He was too focused on the emergency to realize he was now carrying encoded intelligence about Kethran fleet positions and capabilities. Later that same day, the fabric device found its way into the ship's recycling system, where it would eventually be processed and transmitted to other vessels as part of routine material reports. But first it would pass through scanning systems that would read the encoded information and transmit it across the fleet's communication network. Hidden within that transmission was a signal designed to reach Earth. The message was disguised as random electromagnetic noise, but it contained detailed tactical information about Kethran technology and fleet movements. Only Earth's most advanced computers would be able to decode it. As the ship's emergency settled down, Jay-Woo prepared for the next phase of his plan. Sub-Commander Nixel arrived for their regular interrogation session, looking frustrated and tired from dealing with the power crisis. Your information about the moon base was very interesting, Nixel began without his usual confidence. But my superiors want more details. Tell me about these planet cracker weapons. How do they work? How long do they take to charge? Jay-Woo had been ready for this question. He made his voice shake with fear as he provided more fictional details about Earth's non-existent superweapons. They use quantum field manipulation to destabilize a planet's core. But the process takes months to complete and requires enormous amounts of energy. How many of these weapons exist? Nixal pressed. I think there are 3 of them, Jay-Woo replied, after pretending to struggle with the decision to reveal more secrets. 1 inside the moon, and 2 others in hidden asteroid bases. But they're all connected to the same power grid. If you destroy the moon facility, the others will be useless. This information served Jay-Woo's purposes perfectly. It would focus Kethran attention on attacking the moon while leaving Earth's real defenses intact. It would also make them believe they could win easily by destroying a single target. But most importantly, it established a timeline that worked in Jay-Woo's favor. If the weapons took months to charge, then the Kethran would rush their attack to prevent Earth from completing the process. Over the following days, more intelligence flowed both ways. Jay-Woo continued to feed the Kethran false information while gathering real intelligence about their plans. He learned that the main fleet was already moving toward the rendezvous point at Kepler 442. Commander Veltar had become personally interested in the intelligence about Earth's weapons. He visited the interrogation sessions to hear Jay-Woo's revelations firsthand. This human has provided valuable information, Veltar told Nixal after one session. Make sure he remains healthy and cooperative. We may need more details about Earth's defenses. Of course, Commander, Nixal replied. The prisoner has been most helpful. I believe he genuinely wants to spare his people from unnecessary suffering. If only they knew the truth. Jay-Woo was indeed trying to spare his people, but not in the way the Kethran believed. Every piece of false information he provided was designed to give Earth's real defenders crucial advantages when the battle came. The breakthrough Jay-Woo had been working toward came during his 4th week of captivity. Medical officer Yulka came to his cell for a routine health examination. She had been monitoring his condition to make sure the stress of interrogation wasn't damaging their valuable source of intelligence. You seem to be adapting well to captivity, she observed while scanning him with various medical devices. Most humans show more physical deterioration after this length of imprisonment. I'm trying to stay healthy, Jay-Woo replied meekly. I hope that if I cooperate fully, your people might show mercy to my family when Earth surrenders. Yulka paused her examination and looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. You understand that resistance would be futile? Your planet cannot stand against the full might of the Kethran Empire. I know, Jay-Woo said sadly. That's why I'm trying to help prevent unnecessary bloodshed. Maybe if Earth surrenders quickly, fewer people will have to die. This conversation gave Jay-Woo important insight into Kethran psychology. Even their medical officers viewed the coming battle as inevitable and one-sided. They had no concept that humans might be capable of defeating them through superior strategy rather than superior firepower. That same day, Jay-Woo overheard the most important piece of intelligence yet. Commander Veltar was speaking with his senior officers just outside the detention area, and their voices carried clearly through the ship's ventilation system. Fleet Command has moved up the attack timeline, Veltar announced. We will rendezvous with the main force in 6 days instead of 12. The assault on Earth will begin immediately after all vessels are assembled. What about the human weapons? Asked Chief Engineer Mordak. If they need months to charge, we still have time to prevent them from becoming operational. Exactly, Veltar replied. Intelligence from our prisoner suggests that Earth's superweapons are nowhere near ready. This gives us the perfect opportunity to strike before they can complete their preparations. One of the other officers raised a concern. Sir, what if the human is lying? What if this is some kind of deception? Veltar's laugh was full of contempt. Look at him. The creature is broken and terrified. He betrayed his own species to save his miserable life. Humans are weak cowards who will say anything to survive. The conversation continued, but Jay-Woo had heard enough. The Kethran had fallen completely for his deception. They believed Earth was helpless and unprepared. They were rushing toward what they thought would be an easy victory. They had no idea they were flying into the most carefully planned trap in galactic history. That night, as Jay-Woo lay in his cell, he reviewed everything he had accomplished. His false intelligence had been transmitted to the highest levels of Kethran Command. The enemy fleet was rushing toward Earth ahead of schedule, which would disrupt their coordination and supply lines. Most importantly, his encoded message to Earth should have reached home by now. Earth's defenders would have detailed information about Kethran capabilities and fleet movements. They would know exactly when and how the attack would come. But Jae-woo's plan required more than just intelligence. For the final phase to work, he needed to be present when the fleet reached its rendezvous point. He needed access to the ship's communication array, when all 12,000 Kethran vessels were connected through their quantum network. The next few days would determine whether Earth's sharpest mind could turn the enemy's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. The pieces were in place. The trap was set. Now came the most dangerous part of all. The Void Hunter shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel and entered the Kepler 442 system. Through the small window in his cell, Jae-woo could see flashes of light as thousands of other ships materialized around them. The sight was both magnificent and terrifying. The Kethran invasion fleet was assembling. Ships of every size and configuration filled the space around the system's dim red star. Massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets floated alongside sleek destroyers and swift attack cruisers. Supply, vessels, and command ships formed a complex web of military organization that stretched across millions of kilometers. Jae-woo had never seen anything like it. No single species in galactic history had ever assembled such a powerful force. If his plan failed, Earth would face annihilation beyond anything humans could imagine. But failure was not an option. Too much depended on the next few hours. The ship's communication system crackled with activity as fleet commanders coordinated their vessels. Jae-woo listened carefully to the traffic flowing through the corridors. Status reports, supply requests, tactical updates. Every ship in the DR fleet was linked through the quantum communication network he had studied so carefully. Commander Veltar's voice echoed through the ship as he addressed the crew. Fellow warriors of the Kethran Empire, we are gathered here to witness the beginning of our greatest conquest. The weak humans of Earth believe their primitive weapons can protect them. They will learn otherwise. Cheers erupted from crew members throughout the vessel. The Kethran were confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had never faced defeat and saw no reason why Earth should be different from the dozens of other worlds they had conquered. This overconfidence would be their downfall. 3 hours after the fleet assembly began, Sub-Commander Nixel came to Jae-woo's cell with unusual urgency. Behind him stood 2 guards and Medical Officer Yulka carrying a portable medical kit. "Human," Nixel announced. "Fleet Command wants to verify the intelligence you have provided. You will be brought before the senior commanders to answer their questions directly." This was an unexpected development, but one that Jae-woo could adapt to his plans. Being brought before the fleet commanders would give him access to the most secure areas of the ship. It might also provide opportunities he hadn't anticipated. "I understand," he replied in his practiced tone of fearful cooperation. "I'll answer any questions they have. I just want this war to end with as little bloodshed as possible." Medical Officer Yulka stepped forward with her scanning equipment. "First, I must examine you to ensure you are fit for presentation to the command staff. We cannot have you collapsing during such an important briefing." As she ran her medical scanners over him, Jae-woo made a calculated decision. It was time to reveal what appeared to be a medical condition that would serve his larger purpose. "Doctor," he said hesitantly, "I haven't wanted to worry anyone, but I've been having some problems lately. Dizzy spells and difficulty concentrating. I think it might be related to the different atmosphere on your ship." Yulka's scanners immediately detected changes in his brain chemistry and neural activity. What she didn't realize was that Jae-woo had been using meditation techniques to alter his own biological responses. The readings looked concerning but weren't actually dangerous. "Interesting," she murmured while studying the data. "Your neural pathways are showing unusual patterns. This could be caused by exposure to our ship's atmospheric composition. Kethran. Air has different electromagnetic properties than what humans are accustomed to. Can you treat it?" Jae-woo asked with apparent worry. "I want to be able to answer the commander's questions clearly. If my mind isn't working properly, I might give them wrong information by mistake." This appeal to the value of accurate intelligence motivated Yulka to find a solution. "I can synthesize a compound that will help your brain adapt to our atmospheric conditions. It should improve your mental clarity significantly." "Thank you, Doctor. Jae-woo replied gratefully. I really appreciate your help. What Yulka didn't know was that she was about to give him exactly what he needed for the final phase of his plan. The compound she would create to help his brain adapt to Kethran atmosphere would also enhance his cognitive abilities far beyond normal human levels. More importantly, the same compound, when introduced into the ship's atmospheric system, would interact with the quantum processors that ran the communication network. Jae-woo had calculated these interactions weeks ago while planning his strategy. The medical treatment took place in the ship's main medical bay. Yulka worked carefully to synthesize a compound that would be safe for human biology, while effective against the atmospheric issues she had detected. She had no idea she was being manipulated by someone who understood Kethran medical technology better than she did. This should resolve your symptoms within a few hours, she explained while administering the treatment. The compound will help. Your neural pathways adapt to our atmospheric electromagnetic fields. I can feel it working already, Jae-woo said truthfully. The enhancement to his mental capabilities was almost immediate and quite dramatic. His thoughts became clearer and faster, while his ability to process complex information increased significantly. But he was careful not to show any outward signs of these improvements. To Yulka and the guards, he still appeared to be the same broken human prisoner they had been keeping for weeks. 2 hours later, guards escorted Jae-woo through sections of the ship he had never seen before. They passed through multiple security checkpoints that required special authorization codes. The deeper they went into the vessel, the more sophisticated the technology became. Finally, they reached the main command center where the ship's senior officers were assembled around a massive holographic display showing the positions of the entire invasion fleet. The sight was breathtaking and terrible at the same time. Commander Veltar stood at the center of it all, directing the coordination of 12,000 warships. When he saw Jae-woo being brought in, he gestured for the guards to position the prisoner where everyone could see him. So this is the human who has provided us with such useful intelligence, Veltar said while studying Jae-woo like a specimen in a laboratory. You have been most cooperative. Your information about Earth's weaknesses has been invaluable. I'm glad. I could help prevent unnecessary fighting, Jae-woo replied with convincing humility. I just want this to end peacefully. Chief Engineer Mordak stepped forward with a display showing technical specifications. Tell us more about the power systems that supply your planet's weapons. If we can disrupt these systems, the weapons will be useless. This question gave Jae-woo the opening he needed to provide more false information while gathering intelligence about Kethran plans. He spent the next hour describing fictional power grids and imaginary weapon systems while memorizing every detail of the command center around him. Most importantly, he studied the central communication array that linked this ship to every other vessel in the fleet. The quantum processors that managed the network were exactly where he expected them to be and showed the vulnerabilities he had predicted. During a brief pause in the questioning, Jae-woo made another calculated move. Commanders, he said respectfully, I've been having some health problems that the medical officer treated with a special compound. I'm feeling much better now, but I'm worried about what might happen if the treatment wears off during the attack on Earth. Commander Veltar looked concerned. This human had become too valuable to risk losing to medical problems. What kind of treatment did you receive? Dr. Yulka gave me something to help my brain work better in your ship's atmosphere, Jae-woo explained. She said the electromagnetic fields were affecting my ability to think clearly, but I'm afraid the effects might not last long enough. Medical Officer Yulka stepped forward from where she had been observing the briefing. The compound I administered should remain effective for several days. However, if there are concerns about the prisoner's mental state during critical intelligence gathering, we could introduce a small amount of the compound into the ship's atmospheric system. Would that be safe? Veltar asked. Completely safe for Kethran physiology, Yulka assured him. The compound is specifically designed to affect human neural chemistry. It would have no impact on our crew. This was exactly what Jae-woo had been working toward. That would be very helpful, he said gratefully. I want to make sure I can provide accurate information when you need it most. Veltar nodded his approval. Do it. We cannot afford to have our intelligence source compromised by medical issues. Within an hour, Yulka had introduced a carefully measured amount of the neural enhancement compound into the ship's atmospheric circulation system. She believed she was simply ensuring the prisoner's continued usefulness. In reality, she was giving Jae-woo access to cognitive abilities far beyond anything any human had ever possessed. But more importantly, the compound was now flowing through the same atmospheric systems that cooled and maintained the ship's quantum processors. The interaction between the organic compound and the crystalline computing matrices would create exactly the kind of resonance cascade that Jae-woo needed. As the enhanced atmosphere reached the communication array, Jae-woo felt his mental capabilities expand even further. He could now process information at speeds that seemed The attack on Earth began at exactly 600 hours ship time. From his cell window, Jae-woo could see the massive Kethron fleet organizing itself into attack formations. 12,000 warships moved with precision that spoke of countless victories against lesser civilizations. Commander Veltar's voice echoed through the ship's communication system as he addressed the crew. Warriors of the Kethron Empire. Today we add another world to our domain. The humans will learn that resistance is futile when faced with superior force. Cheers erupted throughout the vessel as crew members prepared for what they believed would be an easy conquest. They had no idea they were about to face the most devastating defeat in their empire's history. Jae-woo had spent the night making final preparations. His enhanced mental abilities allowed him to simultaneously monitor dozens of communication channels while calculating the precise timing for his counterattack. Every ship in the fleet was connected through the quantum network he had studied so carefully. The neural enhancement compound continued to flow through the ship's atmospheric systems. Unknown to the Kethron crew, it was also interacting with their communication processors in ways that would soon become apparent. 3 hours. Into the journey toward Earth, the first phase of Jae-woo's plan activated automatically. The compound had reached critical saturation levels in the quantum processors and began to create harmonic resonances in the crystalline matrices. Chief Engineer Mordak noticed the anomalies first. "Commander," he reported over the communication system, "we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations in the main communication array. Nothing dangerous, but the patterns are unlike anything in our technical databases." "Can you correct the problem?" Veltar asked. "I believe so, sir. It appears to be some kind of resonance cascade in the quantum processors, probably caused by interaction with cosmic radiation during our faster-than-light travel." Mordak had no idea he was looking at the result of deliberate sabotage by the human prisoner. The resonance patterns were indeed unlike anything in Kethron databases, because they had been designed by someone who understood both Kethron technology and human neuroscience. Meanwhile, Jae-woo was using his access to the communication network to monitor Earth's defensive preparations. What he saw filled him with pride and hope. His encoded intelligence transmission had reached home, and Earth's military leaders had put it to good use. Hidden defense platforms throughout the solar system were powering up and taking aim at predetermined coordinates. Stealth ships emerged from concealment in the asteroid belt and began moving toward attack positions. Most importantly, Earth's real superweapons were charging up and preparing to demonstrate their capabilities. The Kethron had expected to find a weak planet defended by primitive technology. Instead, they were flying into the most sophisticated defensive network humanity had ever constructed. But even Earth's advanced defenses couldn't stop 12,000 enemy ships through conventional warfare. That was why Jae-woo's plan was so crucial. 4 hours before the fleet would reach Earth's outer defensive perimeter, Jae-woo put his endgame into motion. Using his administrative access to the communication network, he began broadcasting a signal that appeared to be routine fleet coordination data. In reality, the signal contained carefully crafted frequency modulations designed to interact with Kethron neural chemistry. The same quantum fields that carried messages between ships were now carrying a weapon that would affect every crew member in the fleet. The signal was subtle at first, just minor fluctuations in the background noise that no one would notice unless they knew exactly what to look for. But as it propagated through the network, it began to resonate with the neural enhancement compound that was now present in atmospheric systems throughout the fleet. Medical Officer Yulka was the first to notice. Something was wrong. Crew members began reporting mild headaches and difficulty concentrating. The symptoms seemed minor, but they were affecting everyone on the ship at the same time. "Commander," she reported to Veltar, "I'm seeing unusual medical readings from multiple crew members. Nothing serious, but the pattern is concerning. It's as if something in our environment is affecting neural function. Could it be related to the communication system problems?" Veltar asked. "Possibly. The timing does seem connected. I recommend we investigate both issues simultaneously." But it was already too late. Jay-Woo's signal had been broadcasting for over an hour, and the resonance effects were building toward a critical threshold. Every ship in the fleet was now saturated with the neural disruption field. The breakthrough came when Technician Zekin was examining the communication array and noticed something extraordinary. The quantum processors weren't just carrying data anymore. They were generating complex wave patterns that seemed to have a hypnotic effect on anyone who observed them directly. "Chief Engineer," Zekin called out nervously, "you should see this. The processors are creating patterns I've never seen before. They're beautiful, but they make me feel strange when I look at them." Mordak hurried to examine the anomaly and immediately understood they were facing something far beyond normal equipment malfunction. "This isn't a technical problem," he realized. "Someone is controlling our communication systems from the outside." That exact moment, Jay-Woo activated the final phase of his plan. The subtle frequency modulations suddenly amplified into a powerful neural disruption wave that propagated through every quantum communication channel in the fleet. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the Kethron Armada, crew members suddenly felt overwhelming drowsiness as the neural signal interfaced with their brain chemistry. Within minutes, thousands of warriors who had never known defeat were falling unconscious at their posts. "Commander." Veltar managed to stay conscious long enough to understand what was happening. "It's the human," he gasped as the realization hit him. "The prisoner. He's done something to our communication system." But by then it was too late to stop the cascade. The neural disruption field had reached critical mass and was feeding back through the quantum network with exponentially increasing power. Every ship in the fleet was now trapped in a null space bubble of Jay-Woo's design. The unconscious crews couldn't control their vessels, which meant the ship's automated systems activated emergency protocols. Instead of continuing their attack, on Earth the entire Kethran fleet found itself locked in stable orbits around empty space, unable to move or fight. As the last Kethran crew member succumbed to the neural field, Jay-Woo walked calmly out of his detention cell. The door locks had been controlled by the same quantum processors he had compromised. He had been able to leave at any time, but had waited for the perfect moment. He made his way through the ship's corridors where unconscious aliens lay slumped over their control panels. In the main command center, he found Commander Veltar barely conscious and struggling to understand how his mighty fleet had been defeated without firing a shot. "You," Veltar whispered as Jay-Woo entered the command center. "How did you do this? We are the superior species. Our technology is more advanced than anything humans possess." Jay-Woo looked down at the defeated commander with something that might have been pity. "Your technology is impressive," he acknowledged. "But you made a critical error. You assumed that superior firepower automatically means superior strategy. This is impossible," Veltar protested weakly as the neural field finally overcame his resistance. "Humans are primitive, weak. You cannot defeat the Kethran Empire." "We already have," Jay-Woo replied simply. He activated the main communication array and broadcast a message that would be heard throughout the galaxy. It was transmitted on open channels that every civilized species could receive and translate. "This is Dr. Kim Jay-Woo of Earth speaking to all members of the Kethran Empire. Your invasion fleet has been neutralized without permanent harm to your personnel. They are alive but temporarily incapacitated. This was achieved using your own communication technology turned against you." The message continued with terms for the fleet's release. The Kethran Empire would agree to a permanent non-aggression treaty with Earth and all other independent worlds. They would release all prisoners and slaves taken in previous conquests. They would pay reparations for the damage they had caused throughout the galaxy. If these terms are not accepted within 72 hours, the neural disruption field will become permanent. Your crews will never wake up and your fleet will drift in space forever. The choice is yours. Within hours, rescue ships from Earth arrived at the coordinates Jae-woo transmitted. They found him standing alone in the command center of the Void Hunter, surrounded by 12,000 disabled warships that had been the galaxy's most feared military force. The rescue team looked at him with awe and disbelief. "Sir," the team leader asked, "how did you manage to defeat an entire invasion fleet by yourself?" Jae-woo smiled as he prepared to return to Earth. "I didn't defeat them through superior force. I defeated them by thinking further ahead than they could imagine. They captured what they thought was a helpless prisoner. In reality, they captured someone who had been planning this outcome from the very beginning." The epilogue came 6 months later when representatives of the Kethran Empire signed a comprehensive peace treaty with Earth. The neural disruption field was safely removed from their fleet, and their